everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod Barbecue Podcast. This is a total car guy episode. This goes out to anybody that has dealt with any type of rust, any type of corrosion, any type of, if you've snapped a bolt, we're going to dive into that hole. And why are we going to do that? Well, one of the reasons is I've got Jason, and I promise I'm not trying to butcher your name, Jason Anagnostis.
Perfect. 100%.
I got it.
Spot on.
Okay.
Right on. Nailed it.
Okay. Who's the chief technical officer at POR-15, along with our own Dan Stoner from Hemmings. And all right, let's talk about rust. Let's talk about corrosion. Let's talk about how to prevent it and keep every person that's ever bought an old muscle car or a pickup truck or anything, how to prevent it.
Absolutely. Right?
Very good.
Absolutely.
So first, how are you guys doing today? Everybody good?
Splendid. It's the Friday of a holiday weekend.
That's so true. And Jason, by the way, one of the first things I wanted to say as we kicked this off was that and Mike and I are both original East Coasters, right? And we moved out here to California. And a good friend of mine said to me one time, because we were talking about just rust in general, and he was born and raised here in San Francisco. And he said, see, what you guys don't understand is that cars on the East Coast rust from the bottom up. Cars on the West Coast rust from the top down. I'm like, that's probably the most brilliant thing I've ever heard.
Yep.
Dude,
absolutely.
That is so true. So true.
People think that California cars don't rust. I'm like, man,
Have you seen a picture of a car in a field in California? They're all orange.
Yeah. right, exactly. And I've got a as we've seen in some of the stuff that we've done with you guys in the past, I've got a 74 F350 that, wait a minute. Yep, I can hear it rusting out in front of the house right now.
Well, so dude, this is the biggest thing. And like, you know, to Dan's thing, East Coast, we just knew if you were buying an old vehicle, you just knew it was going to have rust, or that even if you couldn't see it, that the rust was just hidden.
It's there.
It's there.
Gotta look harder.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I remember when I first started, you know, I first discovered or heard about rust prevention, like POR-15. Like, well, why didn't you use POR-15 on this? I was like, what the hell are you talking about? What is, you know? And I think that's one of the myths that we want to talk about. We want to talk about, I think, one, when you're going after an old vehicle, whether it's a car, a truck, anything, right? Because POR-15, you've got so many uses above and beyond just kind of, you know, automobiles and stuff like that. But first, give us a little genesis around the company, because I know its roots are embedded. Literally, it's 100 years old to an extent.
100 years old. So the roots we're East Coast. So it's East Coast through and through. It started in New Jersey. So think of it as two streams converging is probably the best analysis to use. POR itself, paint over rust, POR, you know, it comes different ways. We roll with it. Started in 78. Gentleman stumbled on the formula, happened to be with some car people, happened to realize it pretty much adhered to everything. It didn't come off skin, shoes, clothing, or rust. And so thus it was born. And they were making it in basically a small shed for years. Company was growing. And around 1994, got to be careful how you say the years these days.
1894?
1894. They reached out to what was then Absolute Coatings, which is the company I work for or had worked for. Absolute Coatings started in 1923. Family-run company, started out making shellac. And then in the 40s, early 50s, started making polyurethane floor coatings and polyurethanes. And that's why we are, for all intents and purposes, experts with polyurethanes. And the premier product, I brought props. I don't bring props to these things, but I brought props.
I've got one of those.
Everyone knows this for the red can. Well, that red can is essentially a polyurethane polymer. And so they reached out to us in early 94. We started making the product. And then in 2012, we acquired POR-15. And so Absolute Coatings was now manufacturing floor coatings and POR-15. And then in 2016, we jettisoned the floor coatings and became solely focused on automotive restoration. And that's where we've been hammering away on POR-15, growing the exposure of it, trying to grow the education of it, which, is always a challenge, but with guys and friends like you guys help us get the gospel out there and the proper use, because we all know there's all sorts of wonky uses out there. And we're just trying to grow it. And we're car guys. And Dan, you and I have spoke plenty, but I do this as much a passion because I'm a geeky chemist as well, but I'm a car guy. I want people to have, fun and hold on to their investment for as long as possible. And the pride of working on it yourself. There's a lot to be said. When you do something yourself, you walk a little bit taller with what you're driving and when you're showing people. So, we put together products that help people feel better and have their investment, their car, motorcycle, barrel, whatever it is, last longer so they can be happy and use it and get the most out of it.
Well, it's interesting because POR-15 is one of those, any type of rust prevention product, right?
Yep.
Is one of those things that goes largely sight unseen, right? It's not a sexy product. It's not something that you look at and you go, I can't wait to show this to my friends, right? It's a preventative product that kind of just keeps things going so you can enjoy. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people need to realize. I mean, Dan did a video was earlier this year about, on his pickup truck. Not only was it really cool because he kind of went through these steps on how to strip, how to put, the coating back on
it and all that.
So, but let me ask you. So if people out there say you're going to look at an old Camaro or an old pickup truck, right? How much rust is too much rust for a product to be used? Is there, and this is kind of where the education process comes in, right? Because that's something that I really don't know. Like we see things like surface rust and you're like, well, there's not a hole there. That's probably okay. And then you see stuff, you're like, there's a shotgun shell. There's a big hole in there. Like, how do you determine when the product should be used?
And generally, your perforation's a really great example. Sometimes you can manage that, but you can also get a sense of like, how much of the thickness of the metal has been lost to time and to corrosion. And so as nasty and whatnot as a perforation may be, you get a sense, is that metal lost much of integrity? Is it paper thin, or is it, it's not too bad. The bulk of that piece of metal is in good shape. We can, save this piece, then absolutely use it. You look at restoration, especially when it comes to rust prevention, stuff like that, and then just automotive restoration. The last 15 years, people are so much more comfortable now cutting out a piece of a panel and welding a new thing in. Like 15 years ago, you throw someone a MIG, they're like, a MIG. Oh my God, I can't do that.
They wouldn't touch it, right?
Like,
right.
I got YouTube in my MIG. I can look, dual screen it. So people are a lot more comfortable replacing panels now than they were. To that end, if it's perforated, you want to get rid of the perforated part as much as you can. You want to put some fresh metal in there. But if you have lost too much in the integrity of the panel, then by all means, coat it, clean it really well. And just like welding, you have to prep really well, or else your welds are going to suck and they're not going to stick. A paint's the same way. You got to prep really well, or else it's not going to adhere. So we go through a lot of efforts to kind of put a system in place so people do that. But it's the same system in place. You got to make sure the surface is clean, make sure it's dry, and then you can weld properly. Any paint, anything you're doing to refresh a surface, preparation is key. And that way your finished product's going to work really well.
It's like 90% of the job, right? It's like getting, and Scott over there at POR helped me a lot with that, like in the preparation. He's like, Dan, don't rush this. Do this the right way first. And then, because to be perfectly honest, I'm always, and I think a lot of us, car nerds are like this. We want to see the end result as fast as possible.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So you want to paint the stuff on, you want to see it all come together. You want to see the surface of it done nicely. Same with like when I did even just like things like the POR bed liner and all this other stuff that the brake caliper paint. Like I got a little mini that I jam around the city and I wanted red calipers as fast as possible. Slow it down, do the prep. Yeah.
I'm coming out with a new color for you. I'm going to come out with a metallic copper.
Yes.
It looks so sick.
That gets on the back end then.
That's it. But I think the prep is, it was interesting. The first time I got a car painted, the old school body guy, right? And he goes, listen, we prepped the car, we put it in primer. He goes, listen, I'm going to keep the car for 7 months. I go, say what now? He goes, it's going to sit in primer. He goes, I need to know what it's going to do. He goes, it's going to shrink. It's going to expand. He goes, I want to see everything that's going to done. And it's one of those things you're like 7 months. Like, I want this thing back in a week. And he's like, you can have it back in a week. He goes, but in, 2 months, you're going to start seeing imperfections and stuff like that. But he was the first one that actually explained what preparation was and how important it was on a surface, especially when you're trying to get different materials to adhere to different materials, right? So rust prevention
challenge. There's
right?
science that goes into it, and to your point, so few people talk about it. They're like, I just got to do. But at least you had the benefit of education from someone who it's like, no, I got to hold on to it. It like you said, it's going to expand, it's going to shrink, it's going to temperature change. I'm going to throw it in the sun for 2 days, and all sorts of crazy stuff's going to come out when it cools off at night. So it's understanding what the substrate's going to do, how the coating's going to react to the substrate, and then that way you can move on from there. And things have to age together to get that right synergy that you need, and it's a huge part of painting. Painting is a bucket of work. You show me a paint can, and granted, it's what we do. It's a bucket of work. I avoid it at all costs. But to do it right, it's a bucket of work. But when you do it right, it's like you can like almost forget about it, and you're just happy with how things are.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, because Jason, I can be honest with you. You don't talk. Most car guys aren't running around with a PhD in chemistry. Okay.
Yeah.
So
speak for yourself, Mike.
Right. My bad. I forgot.
Come on now.
So how did this morph into? How did your fascination with chemistry and your combination with cars morph into forming a job? Because that's one of those things, like, I know, like, for Dan and myself, we kind of invented our jobs. People are like, how do you do what you do? And we're like, well, nobody did it. So we were like, I don't know, let's figure it out.
Yep.
How did you combine the two?
Oh, my friends laugh at me all the time. Like, what, how did you wrangle this? It's a funny journey. And again, like I told her, I'll talk forever. I've been dealing with cars since I was a little kid. Dad and I in 78 rebuilt the big block in the Corvette. So we have a 67 Corvette. And my first foray into building a motor was, side by side with Dad, getting yelled at with the flashlight and bringing them the wrong wrench. But we rebuilt the at the time it was a 396. It was a stolen motor out of the car. But anyway,
that's another podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Then when I was 15, I bought a 67 Nova Sport Coupe, rebuilt that. Took out the 6-cylinder, put in a 62 Corvette Fuelie motor in it, and that was the school ride. So cars have always been a thing. I think there's a picture of me in the stands, and thank you to my dad and my parents for helping me explore this crazy hobby / addiction. The picture of me in the stands at like Atco Dragway, like 3 or 4 years old, just watching like an old Anglia gasser going down the track. So like, it's in the blood.
Yeah.
And then chemistry. If you're a car guy, you like to build things. You like to break things too. And chemistry, it just kind of clicked when I went to college. I wanted to be maybe a veterinarian or something. Chemistry clicked. I said, all right, this seems like a good idea. Let's do that. Graduated there, and then had the opportunity to go get my doctorate. And hey, I know myself. If I get a job, I'm not going back to school. So I said, hammer down, let's go through and get the PhD. What the hell? I'll stay poor for another couple years and see how that goes. And it was just something I want to do for myself. It was 100%. This seems like a cool idea. That's a cool research project, and just hammer down and did it. And then from there, just kind of winded. I was up in Massachusetts, and then that job ended. They sold the company, and then I was looking for a job. And then in a small ad, tiny little ad in the newspaper down here in New Jersey, my family's from Jersey, there was an ad looking for a chemist, ideally PhD, who likes motorsports and whatnot. I'm like,
did your head explode when you read that?
I was like, what the hell is this? Sure. And I got a job at Bel-Ray Lubricants. So I was a senior chemist there. I was making the 2-stroke oils for the 2-stroke motorcycles and jet skis. And then I got to work with some drag racers. We made some high performance 4-stroke oils and things like that. And then it gets kind of morphed. Again, oils, corrosion, protecting the surface. So my career has always been around surface protection. Paints make it look pretty, but at the end of the day, paint protects the surface. It keeps it from corroding. So early on, I was in this by mistake, protecting the surface and stuff. Worked for Benjamin Moore for a few years. And then I happened to hook up with the then owner of Absolute Coatings. And he goes, I know you like cars. Obviously, paint. You want to come over here. We're acquiring POR. You want to run this side of the business for me. And I just kind of, you step in it. Sometimes you step in it.
Nice.
For the last 10 years, 11 years, I've been responsible for POR-15, running the business and coming up with products and hanging out with all sorts of cool people and seeing unbelievable projects, getting to see unbelievable collections and like just amazing, unique and history in the automotive industry. And it's just, I'm lucky. I am way beyond lucky that I get to hang out and meet so many cool people and see so many unique vehicles and things like that. So it kind of, it winds, but to your point, if you want something bad enough, but you're still having fun what you're doing, things fall in place at the right time. And it's just a matter of take advantage of it, take the risk, take advantage of it, and it works out.
Well, I think it's so important that people understand. Like, I think a lot of people look at larger companies, right? If you look at a POR-15 or you look at a Hemmings or you look at whatever company that has to do with the automotive brands. It's so important that they know that the people behind the brands are diehard enthusities. Like,
Absolutely,
if Dan and I weren't working for doing automotive media, we'd still be doing, still be playing with cars, because that's what we do. Like, it's a holiday weekend. Guess what I'm doing this weekend?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's not like we wouldn't be doing this. So I think it's, when you talk to people like yourself and the audience goes, oh shit, these guys, they do know the product. You know the product because you live the product.
Absolutely. And know the hassles that people are going through. I mean, we're trying to build a hot rod, a 32 Tudor in the back of the factory.
I saw that. Yeah.
It's going to be stupid fun. But it's like all the problems you go through. Oh, I got to replace a floorboard. I got to do this, like all the little things of you need to go through. So we go through not just painting things, but building stuff. And paint could help solve this problem, or paint would protect this, or this would be a cool product if we had X. And so just using it, it doesn't happen every day. Like there's only so much paint you can develop, but there's ways you can use it and things that you can use it for. So that's
and you're not the only hot rodder at POR, right? I mean, there's
a
couple other guys.
There's probably like Scott is my kind of head of marketing, customer service. Yep. He is a hot rod. He is a car person. He knows history. He knows all sorts of stuff. He and I come from two different universes. I'm more of the hot rodder kind of racer. Like if it doesn't go fast, okay, fine. But like he likes original. It's got to be spot on. So if you want to talk about an original car, rebuilt, restored, he has the details. Me, I'm like, oh, cool. It has a blower. Even better.
Right. Cut that thing up. Put a blower in it.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Nothing's too. Here's one thing. When I was looking around at what you were doing and just the interest you have too, the one thing that hit me, talk to me about your vintage BMX collection. That's the one thing I want to know all about.
And how do you protect it?
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to protect them. And so there's like ceramic coatings, things like that, but it's keeping them clean. At the end of the day, you got to keep them clean. The vintage BMX collection. You're a 13-year-old kid. You're in the 70s and the 80s. Like, what do? You're riding your bike everywhere. That's how we got around. I mean, it's funny. I go back to the town I grew up in when I was a little kid. I'm like, I rode my bike from here to here. Like, holy crap, what the hell was I thinking? How are my legs not huge?
Because it was the 70s. It was 70s and 80s.
Yeah, 70s and 80s.
As three East Coast guys, your parents just said, well, just go away.
Yeah, dude, like, I don't want to see you till dinner. Yeah,
come back when the sun's
down.
down.
When the sun comes down, or else I'm going to beat you, and that's going to be. So it's just plain and simple. So we rode our bikes everywhere. So what do you do as an adult? Oh, I have some cash. I remember that bike. Let me see. Hello, eBay. Hello, Google.
Right.
I mean, there's other people out there looking for this stuff. So as a kid, I remember going to a BMX shop as a kid. He was in town, and up on the top, hanging from the window was a thruster tri-power. Wow. And from that day, I remember seeing, I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I got it. And I remember riding one. One kid in town had one. Another kid had a red line. Another kid had a torquer. I always loved them. Diamondbacks, but the thruster, for whatever reason, it was just cool. There's an extra tube in the middle. It was different.
Yeah,
it was
right.
And it was the brightest chrome I had ever seen on a bike. Well, come a couple of years back, I happened to be, in a mood on a, whatever weekend. I'm like, oh, let me see. Internet, hello, black hole. And I came across, and the guy was selling one that was like 60% complete. It had the cranks and had the fork and the frame set. And I'm like, all right, well, here, I don't have enough hobbies. I don't have, O-scale trains. I don't have a race car. I don't have two other projects. Let's throw a BMX restoration in the mix. And so I did that. And then, you can't just have one because they're lonely.
Yeah, so right.
I had the chrome and blue one. And then I said, you know what, really cool. And I like black and gold. And so I went hunting and I found a black frame with the gold, and I got my gold rims and whatnot. So now I have the chrome one and the black and gold tri-power.
Oh
That's
my
awesome.
God. That's what year, what year is your thruster? What year was that?
The black one is an 81 and the chrome one is an 82. It's an XL. So it's a little bit bigger. So it fits my adult size a little better. The little one, I'm like, wow, these bikes were small.
There's such a crossover in collecting, right? Because it's still, like I said, it's the stuff we grew up on. We had bikes before we had cars. And if you're like me, I was sort of the same way. Like I had my life revolved around my 84 Hutch Windstyler until I got a car.
Yeah.
Right. Until I got my friend. And then I put it away. And my parents, like back in 2007, my parents sold the farm I grew up on. And my dad said, do you want your white and pink bike that's up in the barn? I go, what?
By the way, I have a white and purple Skyway Freestyler.
Oh, nice. Dude, so I was a freestyler, man. Yeah. So we had the Skyways were the fight was Skyway, Hutch, GT, Mongoose.
PK Ripper was in there.
Yeah, PK Ripper.
My buddy had a PK Ripper. Oh, that was the coolest bike ever.
That was the one that I never had that I always wanted.
Yep.
Yeah. I always wanted the Trickstar. I couldn't afford the Trickstar, but I was surprised that my dad bought me the Windstyler. You know, and I still have it.
That's
great.
Yeah, and when I was here in San Francisco, I shipped it back out here to myself, and the headset needed to be replaced and all that. And I took it down to a bike shop here in the city, and there was like a 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid behind the counter, looked just completely disaffected by everything. And I walked in with this thing. And I had this is like 2007. Had no idea that this was such a big thing.
Yeah.
And this kid saw this bike and looked, he's like, Lance, come out and look at this thing. And another kid with a whole bunch of metal stuff in his face, he comes out, he's like, oh my God, freaking out. Had no idea. And now I'm deep in, same thing.
It's hard, man. It's hard. Like this is the problem with being in kind of the automotive hobby. Is right. Yeah. Like if you can ride it, sit on it, move it, drive
it. If it moves and it can move faster,
you're in.
You gotta have it.
Yeah, that's right.
Totally in. So, I want to ask you a question. I want to jump back to kind of POR for a second, because we have so many things. We have so many cars that are coming out now, new cars. Okay. So, is there applications for 100%. Because that's I always want, because like, listen, being in California, like Dan said, like stuff rusts from the top down, not from the bottom up. But like if you're in, like I was in Michigan, Dan was in Michigan, we were there a couple of weeks ago. I don't know how much stuff we saw with softball holes the size, holes the size of softballs in it and stuff. Everything rusts. So for a new car, and it used to be one of those things, you'd go to the dealership and the dealer would be like, "So do you want the undercoating?" And you'd be like, "I don't want that crap."
You want the Simon eyes?
Like, is that still a thing where if you live in a place like that, do you make products for the new car owner to jump into and protect themselves?
It's the same products. It's absolutely the same products. There's no reason not to protect the car, especially too. Like at the end of the day, you take it, you have your new car, and then 5 months down the road, the underside is going to be scraped. There's going to be stuff that the wax and oils that they put on there to prevent corrosion comes off. You wash your car every week, it's going to wear away and wash off. One season in the Northeast winter, it's going to come off. So if you have any bare metal, you got to coat it. If you don't coat it, you're just asking for it to start the and whatnot. Mostly things are disposable. Not everyone thinks like that, but if you buy a new car, you want to protect your investment. You see bare metal, coat it. But anything in our portfolio isn't just for old cars that you pull out of a field or you're building something new with. It could be for new car. Tesla. Last year in SEMA, we had a Tesla in our booth. There was a ton of our coatings on it. You can still paint brake calipers. There's still metal on there that needs to be protected. We have a line of clear auto refinish for custom cars and stuff like that, and so we have that. But any surface that is susceptible to corrosion, paint it. We have products for it, and we can guide you through the project of how to properly get it so it's going to be protected for a long time. We want people to protect their investments, whether it be a hot rod, a new car, a tractor trailer, anything out there that you have invested your time and money and effort into. You should protect it. Corrosion doesn't matter what you're doing; it's going to happen. So what can you do to prevent it as much as possible?
So this might sound like a dumb question, or maybe it's not. I don't know. Do you get a lot of people using the products on like their homes and stuff like that too?
We do, gardening, stuff around there, any metal surface that's going to potentially corrode, use it. And hey, the first thing people say in all the forums, it can't be outside. No, it has an Achilles heel. If you find me a product that works under every condition, everywhere, I'm on board. I'll do it.
Right.
Our core product, the Rust Preventive, its weakness is sun. It
really
is what it is. So that's why we got to top coat it. That's why we came out with a variety of coatings to build a system. At the end of the day, things work in system. Very few things, function really well by themselves, but we created a system. So you clean it, you paint it, then top coat it with something. Doesn't have to be our product. We prefer it is, but at the end of the day, you can put whatever you want over it, but you got to protect the primer, and the primer is what's protecting your substrate from corrosion.
Well, that's what I love so much about your stuff too, is that you can actually get these kits that I kid you not, Mike. I don't know if you've seen one of these things, but like I would get these kits of whatever POR it was, whether it was just the rust preventive kit or it was like the bed line or the caliper paint. And this little box would actually come with not only like the entire system of cans of stuff, but it would also come with gloves. It would come with like a little foam squeegee and a paintbrush. I was like, who's going out to Lowe's and buying up paintbrushes for these little kids?
Right.
Like,
you're gonna have to throw away. Although we might be doing away with the foam brush. Like I go back and forth whether to keep it, but most people like, how do I use this stupid thing? So I think I'm just gonna start putting 2 chip brushes in there just so we don't do it that way.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's how do we give people a good experience with the product? You hand someone a can of paint, it's paint. People can figure it out.
Right.
The brush in, brush out. Okay.
Right.
You want people to succeed. You want them that, use it, succeed, it adheres, they can move on. So let's give them everything they need right up front. How many times you go into a project, you're halfway into it. Oh, I forgot. I should have bought that. Like it's not until the second or third time you've done a project that you realize everything that you need going into that project.
Oh man. How many hours do you spend at like the hardware store looking for fasteners because you're halfway through a project? That's what the great thing about your kit. Like, it's all right there. Yeah.
Well, I think the other part is, and it's actually Dan, Junior, one of our shop mechanic up in Bennington, Vermont, in our garage up there. He just did a piece on an old 48 Buick that we have, and the battery tray was all rusted out. No, I shouldn't say rusted out, but it was totally corroded.
Yep.
And it was cool because, listen, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I am not I don't wax stuff. I'm not a cleaner guy. It's just not my nobody likes to do it, especially me. I hate it. But there is a reward in seeing how he kind of put he took the anti-corrosion stuff and kind of stripped it down, then coated it, then painted it. And all of a sudden he had this piece that looked like it literally fell out of a dumpster to something that looked like this is kind of cool. That transformation, I guess, is what I'm getting
drop
at.
all this stuff off.
Right.
Yeah. It's just cool. It's just really neat to kind of bring something back to life and then know it's going to last you X amount of years going into the future.
Especially on battery trays. Battery trays are such a harsh environment.
Oh man.
The rust preventer is great because it resists all those acids and things like that. It's a wickedly durable chemical.
Yeah.
Which is great. So
even the rear bumper on my truck, it's got that center section where like the ball actually bolts to, and with because I need another hobby, I got vintage boats too. And so, but dumping that thing and backing that down into the water over and over again, that whole thing starts to, and we use the POR system on that thing. And it's rock solid. It's bulletproof. That coating on there is great.
Yep. So we're trying to come up with stuff that's going to, again, last a long time. It's something that at the end of the day, you're happy you did, but don't want to have to think about it again. Just go enjoy what you're enjoying. You shouldn't have to worry about whether it's going to work. And that's really, the other piece of the puzzle is I can complete the project, be happy I did it, and then never really think about it again until I look back.
Yeah.
Oh crap, that was really rusty. I remember doing that.
Right.
What's the number one question you get from people?
How do I get it off my skin?
It's what the rubber gloves are for.
Rubber gloves. Or how do I open the lid? Because a lot of times people buy a quart, or I love that they do it, but they'll buy a gallon. Gallon is for you got a lot of work ahead of you. But we always tell people, buy the amount you're going to paint with. That's why we have the 6-packs, little 4-ounce cans. It goes a long way. And a lot of times people will open the can, close the can. Hey, at the end of the day, it's a moisture cured product. It's going to start kicking off as soon as it's open to regular air. And so if you get anything on the lid of the can, you've glued it shut. So little mason jar.
Ask me how I know.
Yeah. That's the most common. And then the other one is, do I have to paint? Do I have to prep after I have sandblast? And I always tell people, how does sandblasting work? It's compressed air. Where does compressed air come from? A compressor. Do you have oil in your compressor? Yeah. Okay. Do you think it's going into the metal when you sandblast it? Probably. Okay. You want to clean that. You can't paint over oil as much as you'd like to. Very few products you can do that with. So, it's a lot of just, it's logical. It's the old cliche. There's no stupid question, but a lot of times it's, you have to think. You have to take things 2 or 3 steps back to realize what are you doing to the substrate when you're treating it. And it's just a lot of education. So our team on the phone, everyone who works, they know the mantra, even the guys on the factory floor. Yeah, I know it's a 3-step. I got to do this, that, and the other thing. You pretty much talk to anyone in the factory. They know how to prep a piece of metal for paint. Not many of them do it, but at the end of the day, they know what the steps are and know why the steps are there.
So, that you just brought up a very good point. I mean, with people that are coming for questions and whatnot and kind of want to educate, what is the best place for them to go to? If they're using some of the product, do they go to the website? Do they go to YouTube? Where is the best place? So they get the real POR-15 answer, as opposed to some guy that's just in his shed, like, look at this. Like,
we get a lot. I mean, hey, I love our users. Our users evangelize our product better than almost any. And I can't be more appreciative of that than anyone else. 800 number, email, and pretty much 7 days a week, you'll get a response. Generally get a response within 24 hours. A lot of times you'll get it the same day or sooner. Some of the guys are bored. They'll check the emails over the weekend. Oh yeah, and they'll answer on a Sunday and email on a Sunday or something like that. Many times they'll shoot an email and it's like this really going to be a long ass winded response. Like, screw it. Pick up the phone. It's easier to talk someone through it than it is to send an email. So just reach out to us. We're mad friendly. Some of us will talk more than others. Everyone's juggling, so sometimes they can't be on the phone for 45 minutes to an hour.
Sure,
but
of course.
We're always going to be there to help and walk people through whatever their problem may be, or help guide them through what may be the best course of action. And sometimes replacing metal is the best course of action. I'm going to be first to say, if it's too perforated, if it doesn't look like it's really structurally proper, get rid of it.
Right.
We'll help you protect the new piece, but don't go overboard trying to, resurrect something that if you can get a replacement, it's probably in your best interest.
Right.
If you can afford it, if you're going to obtain it, then get the replacement. It's going to make your life easier down the road. But if you can't, all right, then we have some solutions for you and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's that decision, and sometimes you have to make a hard, smart decision.
Gotcha.
I'm not very. That doesn't happen very often with me.
Oh God, no! I talk a good
join a club. I'm the epitome of do as I say, not as I do. It's just, oh my God. No, it's cool, and I think that if you get into kind of the hot rodding game or trucks or motorcycles or anything like that, especially when you're talking vintage stuff, and I realized this quite a long time ago. I'm actually vintage right now, which kind of sucks. But yeah, it's like you have to keep stuff protected. Especially out in the weather. There is no part that I've learned over time of this country or any place in the world that isn't going to degrade whatever you own. Absolutely. It's going to happen.
Yep.
Right.
Mother Nature always wins. She wants stuff to be dirt, and she's going to find a way to do it.
Sooner or later.
That is a spectacular way of putting it. Mother Nature wants everything to be dirt. That's solid. So, Dan, you got any other questions for Jason?
I think, Jason, one of the things I want to know is you mentioned SEMA earlier. You got any vehicles you're going to be bringing to SEMA this year? Anything we look forward to?
Because I'm still pushing that. We've been around for 100 years. Last year we had the chassis from the 32, just so everyone can see the guts. Showing the chassis is always great over there, and we had the Tesla. This year, it looks like we're going to have an old and new version again. I think I'm trying to I have it. I haven't pinned down everything, but I do believe we're going to pin down an old and a new Ford product again, and they're going to be side by side. So we're going to the old version and the new version. Both of them. One of them is a complete restoration with lots of our product on it, and the other one is a 2023 with a lot of American Icon clear and some other rust preventive stuff underneath that.
Well, dude, I will tell you, I've got a 1923 Ford Model T hot rod that I'm pretty sure our publisher isn't going to allow me to put in our booth. So
This is what, and I remember the other day you had your YouTube channel. You're talking about saving patina. That's what this product was developed for. I was I was walking through a car show.
Got you.
And a truck came through and they had patina paint and they put the gloss over it. And I was in a mood and I lost my mind. I was like, that is the crappiest looking. How can you do that? It just aggravated. It looked like plastic. I was like, that's just wrong on every level. And then we hammered away for the next 2 months and we came out with a matte clear. So it doesn't look like there's a coating on it. And it's
really,
yeah. It's
okay.
It's one of my formulation triumphs.
So wait, hang on, back up 1 second.
Let me write this down.
So a matte clear, can that go over paint? Can that go over, or is it?
I put it over. My other race car has it have a gloss. It's two-tone, so it has gloss and it has matte on the side. So it's the same base coat, but it looks like two different colors. It looks sweet. So you can put it right over
Jason,
paint.
my man.
Yeah,
I happen to have a matte black '69 Daytona that you and I are going to have a conversation.
So let me ask you: when you paint that matte black, what the biggest problem with painting matte in the current day and age? We resolved this problem. Tiger striping. It's a pain. So
yeah.
So what we did, this is a technology triumph. We don't use flattening agents to get to the matte. We do it through chemistry. Better living through chemistry. Thank you for that. We worked with a partner and we have the polymer, and the polymers work in such a way that when they catalyze and when they dry, they don't dry smooth. So they dry right to them. And that bump is what creates the matte finish. And so that's matte finish, can after can, catalyst after catalyst, gun after gun, is the same sheen. It's between 18 and 21. It changes a little bit depending on the patient app applying it. But at the end of the day, it's the same sheen. You don't get tiger striping. It just it lays out there. And it's just, I love it. Absolutely love it.
That's very cool to know. Okay.
That seems like a good solution, Mike.
I'm thinking that, right? I mean, yeah, okay. Jay, I might have to forward you some photos of this thing and get your advice on it. So
Jason, do you have a vat big enough just to dip his car? Just kind of lower it right down.
Lower it.
We find ways to make it work. Every day we find a way to solve a problem.
Fantastic. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think this is no, dude, this is great because I think so many people don't, they have an idea of what rust prevention is, but one, they don't know how to solve it, and two, they don't know where to go, and three, there's so many myths out there of use this product or use that product. This is the experience that I've had. Like you said, preparation, absolute key, right, to everything.
And there's so many solutions. Like to your point, you can go a variety of different ways. Our solution and the way we've gone about it is as permanent as possible. Waxes work, oils work, greases work, regular paint works, but for how long? Our intent is get the job done and then go enjoy your project that you've worked on, your car, your bike, your train, your truck, whatever it may be. Get it done. Don't think about it. Go have fun. Show it off. That's what we want people to do. We want to have permanent fun because the rust is gone, it's protected, and it's not going to continue.
See, that POR-15 means permanent fun.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. Absolutely. There you go.
You just wrote it.
New t-shirt.
Jason, thank you so much for coming on.
Jason,
Dan,
thanks.
Thank you.
Always amazing to see your face.
Yeah, man. All the way across the bay.
Yeah. And everyone, if you have any questions, contact POR-15 about the products they have. You can go to is it POR-15.com?
POR-15.com is the easiest way to get a hold of us.
Okay, go to the website, ask any questions, and get your car back on the road, get your truck back on the road, and enjoy. And gentlemen, have a fantastic holiday weekend. For those, we're going into Memorial Day weekend. Might be after Memorial Day when you hear this, but I hope everybody out there had a great one. And I guess that's it. I guess we'll see you next time on the Hot Rod Barbecue.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.